replicate successful models.
Content about
adaptive management is for me equal to agile management. It's a question, how do we embrace change? How do we adapt new technologies?
I have to say we use it as a tool, as a way to improve our decision-making process in the project.
Fast learning and the ability to adapt to changing circumstances are critical to the market systems development approach. Market systems consist of multiple actors with their own goals and points of view, and the regional program RECONOMY, including other projects that apply the market systems development approach implemented by Helvetas, operate in complex, dynamic, and unpredictable situations, and especially now that we are in a coronavirus situation. With me is Albina Berisha, who is project manager of the Enhancing Youth Employment in Kosovo, a project of the Swiss Agency for Development and Cooperation. The project contributes to development of labor market opportunities for the youth in Kosovo through developing vocational skills and job mediation. She is an experienced professional in development programs for youth employment issues. Albina, thank you for being part of this episode.
Thank you, Sabine. It's my pleasure.
With me is also Jens Engeli, who is co-leading the Eastern Europe unit at Helvetas, responsible for programs, projects, and mandates portfolio in Eastern Europe, focusing on local governance, decentralization, and local and regional development. He's also international team leader for the civil society program called For an Active Civil Society Together in Serbia. Jens has over 15 years of experience in development cooperation in Africa, Asia, and Europe, which includes Eastern Europe. Jens, thank you for joining.
Thank you. It's a pleasure to be with you, Sabine.
The COVID-19 pandemic has brought business to a halt, affecting countries in the Eastern Europe region, which includes the Western Balkans and South Caucasus. Many have lost their sources of income, pushing them into unemployment. So this worsens the staggering youth unemployment in the region. The burden falls heavily on young people and other vulnerable and disadvantaged groups. So the crisis calls for careful consideration of how initiatives that inclusively and sustainably address unemployment of women, young people, and other vulnerable groups that can play a more collaborative role to minimize the impact and contribute to better solutions beyond the pandemic. So one of these initiatives is the Enhancing Youth Employment in Kosovo, a project of the Swiss Agency for Development and Cooperation. The project applies a systemic approach, just like the regional program RECONOMY. So my question to you, Albina, how do you understand adaptive management? What is it to you?
I think different people understand it differently, adaptive management, but I have to say we use it as a tool, as a way to improve our decision-making process in the project, to adapt based on certain circumstances, especially in times of uncertainties. We basically, when we design project, let's say when I was designed, the objective remained the same. However, in the meantime, the priorities have changed. We set targets, we set a plan, we set a budget, and then we start implementation. We gather data from the field, and the data that come back, we use them for learning purposes, and it basically improves our decision-making process. So the way how I understand it is like the tool to make these changes that are necessary in order to reach our impact. The impact still remains the same. However, the way how we do it changes based on this data. We as project, we put a lot of effort, let's say, in these learnings and the data that come from it. And it's not only about learning, but also sharing the learning and ability to basically communicate that well and and file the learning and document it so that we know later what was the change about. The best example, I would say, in terms of adaptive management was 2020, when a lot of project activities due to COVID were put at uncertainty, and the ability to understand and learn on what are the demands, what are the priorities and trends, where are those trends going, was a way of adaptive management, basically. Where to put resources, where to prioritize, and how to file while these changes were made. Basically.
How do you understand adaptive management, Jens? Is it just the latest development fad?
It's becoming more and more in the forefront. It's becoming more crucial. Adaptive management is for me equal to agile management. And yes, how do I understand it? For me, it's a question, how do we embrace change? How do we adapt new technologies? How do we come to new approaches? How do we seek solutions in a fast changing environment and context? If you look around today, things are changing fast. So this is fast transformation is ongoing. We are, especially Western Balkans, I would say it's a context I'm always amazed. What you know today is already outdated tomorrow. Political environment is changing fast. So our reference points are changing. That means we have to adapt quickly. We have to shift, we have to analyze to stay relevant. So for me, if we talk about adaptive or agile management, elements I see is, this continuous analyzing and seeing, are we still on track? Are we still relevant? How do we then embrace this change? It needs these frequent reflections, Another element which is very important for me, it's something that we have to do together. It's not the manager who does this, it's a team, it has to be owned. It's a way of thinking, a way of working. Teams have to be motivated to do that, It cannot be too complicated. If it gets too complicated, it takes too long. So it's simplicity is another key word there. And then this self-organization, not waiting until the head offices or whatever who is deciding. So we have to be a little bit self-organized. And of course, this, as I said, for me, reflection is a key word, and then adjust slightly towards it, So these are key elements, and perhaps I can highlight a few other ones. If your example for me, when I was thinking about your questions, I thought, what is different, project cycle management, we are talking since 20, 30, 40 years now. Project cycle management, project agile, adaptive management, what is different there, And a few things that came to my mind are, as example, I take the word flexibility, we were used many years, and I think still today there is this happening that the project manager decides and then staff and teams are executing somehow, This is not agile, This is not how we see it. It's the team together that should find solutions quickly, and a manager is more facilitating this and motivating people. It's about ownership, transparency, Again, there, the whole team does it. It's not a person on top who gives orders. Who solves the problem? Who analyzes the problem? Is this, again, management and then having a solution as a consultant or an expert? Or is it the team? It's the team, again, for me. And then, you have this kind of checkpoints and this, what I said, this reflection that is ongoing, It's not the plan that you have done when you plan a project with a log frame, with indicators for 4, 5, 3, 4 years, and then you just execute. No, you plan it, but you reflect it and you adapt it. And that's also, you need this flexibility. And that is then when we might come to that, which can put us into tangentfuls when it comes more to compliance against agility. But I think that's a topic you want to push me, or we are going towards it.
Some projects implemented by Helvetas in the region feel that the administrative and financial systems have become cumbersome. Where do we draw the line, the balancing act? How do you see the application of adaptive management in projects?
I remember very well, a few years ago, we were having a workshop at head office, and we had this, we drew a continuum, a line on the whiteboard, and on the one hand side was compliance, on the other hand was agility, And we had the financial team, administrative team, lobbying, advocating for the compliance side. And on the other side, we had the operational team lobbying for agility. It was like pulling a rope. Everybody tried to pull on their side a bit. And for me, we have to find a middle ground. It needs both. And I might come back to that. And it needs both. But that needs to be, first of all, an understanding from both sides why it needs both, that we can do our work. That's one picture that I have in mind. When I was thinking about the talk today with you, I had another one in mind, if I put, let's take myself or team, we put us in the middle, it's the world around us. Then we think exactly what you said. We think, our head office is our donors, whoever, they're asking a lot of compliance towards us. It's a lot of administrative burden. We are reporting upwards. We are complying with all the standards and the rules and the regulations. Then we demand for ourselves, we demand agility, flexibility, because we think we cannot implement these projects. Okay, that's us. But how do we act? How do we react towards our beneficiaries and clients? What do we do? And often, honestly, if I'm honest, I look at it and I see, first thing we do, we write a contract. We negotiate contracts with our partners. And we put a lot of compliance in. So we ask from them what we dislike to be asked from our head offices and donors somehow, And I think that's really something we have to be aware of, If you look at a little bit values of adaptive management or agile management, one core thing that for me it's important, that is, we work together with our beneficiaries, customer, clients, however you call them, and we seek solutions together. It's not that we negotiate conditions with them and then they comply to us. It's really this. This is the agile way of working. But we try. But honestly, quite often we just repeat what we are kind of forced to do and put it downwards as well. So it's our role there is really crucial.
How useful and practical is adaptive management, Albina?
In my experience, I don't think it's an option. It's something that we have to do every day. It's something that we have to embed to also other team members. We as Market System Development Project, we have flexibility as a core, flexibility to adapt to certain circumstances, ability to learn, adapt, and adjust plans accordingly. It's also encouraged to basically find solutions to the problems that come every day. So I would say that we find it as a very, very useful tool and necessary.
What do you think should be improved? What is needed to make adaptive management more useful?
In order to make it more useful, I think we should be able to make clear the reason for the change and for adaptive management, to communicate the change in an effective way, to identify who may be those who will resist the adaptation. Because if you as a project decide to put more resources in one activity, you have to take those resources from another activity. So you have to be able that you have enough evidence that your decision making is based on data, that all relevant stakeholders are informed about the decision, but also that the team basically embeds this as an everyday task and as a daily job for their work. Another aspect is documentation of adaptive management, especially when project makes strategic reorientations. Let's say if you are working formal education, but all of a sudden you decide to go and work for non-formal education, that must have been because of a reason that the trends maybe are there, that your cost-benefit analysis show that this is more reasonable, and you basically have to make sure that you have all the resources to reach the impact, to communicate well to other stakeholders. So I think these are areas that need continuous improvement within the teams and projects.
The majority of the partners of the Enhancing Youth Employment Project are adopting new strategies that are largely defined by flexibility and responsiveness. But some have taken this responsiveness to another level and aren't only adapting, but wholly reinventing themselves to respond to the demands of people in Kosovo affected by the crisis. Take the Gračanica Innovation Center, for example. They usually work to impart ICT skills to the Serb community in Kosovo, where there has traditionally been a lack of non-formal training centers for the community. So the project has partnered with them to create a sustainable business model and supported them to purchase equipment, improve curricula, and accommodate a larger number of participants. As the pandemic crisis unfolded, the Gračanica Innovation Center created a huge demand by hospitals and medical staff for protective equipment. As they already own the 3D printers, they began printing face shields to help local hospitals who were struggling amid the shortage. This is something that the regional program RECONOMY will leverage. So here's the interview I had with their representative. Alexander, you work to impart ICT skills to the Serb community in Kosovo. As the pandemic crisis unfolded, you created a huge demand by hospitals and medical staff for protective equipment. Can you explain how did you do that and what happened?
The Gračanica Innovation Center is actively engaged in the municipality of Gračanica to impart ICT skills to the young people. Currently, we provide 3 courses. One is basic programming for high school students. The second is Arduino programming on microcontrollers, which is a bit advanced, targeting high school students. And another course is on web design.
Od osnivanja smo počeli sa ta 3 kursa, sad smo se proširili, radimo i kurs 3D modelovanje.
We are also working on a course on 3D model printing. During the pandemic, generally within all the courses, from 2018 till last year, at the start of the outbreak, we had 120 students in our courses. With the students who participated in the competitions the year before the last, we went to the world competition on robotics in China. During the pandemic, we had to put courses on hold until we adapted to online formats. So we had to provide lectures digitally.
Online predavanja. Malo smo pauzirali predavanje.
We have paused for some time the lectures and formed a team to begin printing face shields. I can say we were the first organization in the region to have done this, to help the medical staff and hospitals for protective equipment they needed.
U zaštiti našim zdravstvenim ustanovama pre svega.
During the pandemic, we have printed about 5,000 face shields. In the beginning, we printed them for hospitals and the medical staff, but then expanded producing them for drugstores and those who were directly being faced with the pandemic.
U procesu izgradnje tih vizira, s obzirom da je potreban određen potrošni materijal, to jest
in the process of printing the face shields, a separate part of consumable material was needed, as well as protective foils. In this regard, we received support from the UN mission in Kosovo. Then we also cooperated with other organizations to increase the production of face shields. We are currently working on expanding the organization by producing one more course on 3D laser printing.
Sad smo nastavili sa predavanjima, inače još uvek radimo na izradi vizira i nastavili sa tim kursevima. Planiramo proširenje organizacije, nabavku nekog 3D lasera, proširenje još jednog kursa za 3D laser i normalno nastavili sva takmičenja kao do sada, samo što je sve još uvek online.
So, what have we learned from this episode? What does adaptive management mean in practice? It means that we need to experiment and embrace trial and error. This is not always easy for development practitioners to understand, especially if they are used to direct delivery approaches. So instead of trying to control every variable, try to manage adaptively. Then we also need excellent monitoring processes that feed a continual flow of information. And third is the ability to change strategies, plans, and activities rapidly in response to new information. But what it takes for adaptive management to work well? Well, one is to prioritize learning and flexibility and embrace higher level of risk and uncertainty. Then second, we need strong analytical skills and the confidence and creativity to make decisions quickly and responsibly. And third are adopting new tools and processes such as management, recruitment, analysis, communications, monitoring, and financial systems that prioritize flexibility. This is adaptive management in practice. Thank you for watching and listening, and stay tuned. This was Sabine at RECONOMY, a program of the Swedish International Development Cooperation Agency implemented by Helvetas in Eastern Europe, South Caucasus, and the Western Balkans.